Electricast. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Claudia Monticelli with another episode of my podcast called Let's Talk Soul. Today I have a guest with me, Keith Merron. Keith, say hello to our audience.
Greetings, everybody.
Good. Today, Keith is talking to us from California. Now, as you may know, many of you don't, when I am about to have guests on my show, I usually send them a questionnaire so I get a feel for what the conversation could be about, and a section where I ask them to introduce themselves or write something about them that I could use to introduce them. And can I share this with them, Keith?
Of
What you
course,
wrote?
of
Okay.
course.
So Keith wrote, my girlfriend asked me something about what was in my calendar. She found it curious and wondered what I was up to. She has 100% access to my calendar. I pointed out how I chose to live a life wherein if anyone knew what I thought or said or did, I would have no problem with that. It wouldn't give me any concern. I live a life with no shame and have set it up that way since I was 18. Ask me about that. I'm going to ask you about that.
Okay.
I don't use much social media because the best way to find me is through my LinkedIn profile that I will include, of course, in the description. And it's not that I'm private. It's just that social media doesn't make my heart sing. So 18,
Yeah.
18 of age, that's voting
Yeah.
age. Now, what happened at that age?
Well, it was probably even before then.
Uh-huh.
Uh, I'm not exactly sure when, but I will tell you that when I was 10 years old, roughly,
Yes.
I kind of separated from my family. I
Yes.
I felt that my family was really hard. It was a hard family to be in,
Mm-hmm.
and my
And
parents were very
can I
cold.
ask you
And
how you did that? Did you do that legally? Uh-huh.
no, I did it emotionally,
Mm-hmm.
and it'll connect back to the question in a
Sure.
bit. But my parents were pretty cruel and cold and calculating, and there's no nurturing in my family, and it was very painful growing up for the
Mm-hmm.
first 8 or 9 years being in my family, and at some point, and I don't know why, I
Yeah.
had this sudden realization that these parents were not the right parents for me, and so I decided I'm on my own,
Mm-hmm. Do
and
you,
I'm going to make my way
do
in
you have any
life.
siblings, Keith?
I do. I have an older sister who's a
Uh-huh.
year and a half older than me, and then I also have a younger half sister who
Mm-hmm.
was just recently born at that time.
Mm-hmm.
So I just said I'm on my own,
That's it.
and one of the beautiful things when you say you're on your own at an early age, I still lived in my mother's house, not happily, but I lived there. I didn't
Yeah.
have means to
Of
I didn't
subsistence.
run away,
Mm-hmm.
but one of the beautiful things that when you make a decision like that early on, which hardly anybody ever does, is I get to shape my own life the way I want to.
That's true on the one hand, at no cost, because you have people providing for you.
I know, I know,
Okay.
I know. It's
So
not
there
quite the
is,
same.
it's sort of a double-edged sword, that sword. When you mentioned 18, that means that there was another threshold, something else happened, that you made a decision, a conscious decision to, live uh, the way you wanted to, with
Well,
no shame. You mentioned the word shame. Now,
yeah.
shame is something that's very
Well,
hard to explain.
I know, I know. Well,
Yeah.
I'm a one on the Enneagram, and so I'm inclined. If nothing else, my parents did offer me a pretty high ethical model,
Yeah.
but I've always been kind of uh, I don't know if it's driven is the right word, but I've always been a kind of a self-made person since I was
Uh-huh.
10. And so, what kind of life do I want to lead? And it was clear when I got into college, I was going to do something meaningful. I was going to do something that would add value to the world in some way.
Hmm.
And I think I imagined I would be a little bit of a public figure. And then the thought, who do I want to be? How do I want to show up in the world? And
Hmm.
Religion didn't guide me, so something else had to, and I guess it was my soul.
Did you, do you mind asking what your focus was and at a university level? Did you have a major?
There's a program at my university, University of Northern Colorado, called the Interdisciplinary Studies Program.
Nice.
And basically, it's a program where you can shape your own major.
Right.
You
Hmm.
have to petition
Sure.
a board and say, I don't want to do the typical majors. I want to do my own thing. And
Well,
so I applied
what
and
did
got
you
accepted.
focus? What did you focus on?
It was basically the rough focus was public policy in
Right.
contemporary society,
Okay. Good.
but it was an excuse to have a triple major. It was an
Yeah.
excuse to be a major in
Okay.
political science,
All right.
economics, and sociology.
Okay. So we have quite a focus there. You could go anywhere with that, really,
Anywhere, that's
right?
right. That's
So where did you go?
Well, I had no idea where I wanted to go then. Play tennis and pick up girls. I mean, that's that and
Did
study.
it work?
Um, but when I graduated college, I roamed around Europe for a little bit, and then roamed around in a bunch of different odd jobs. And then I got this really cool job. I was part of the planning team that was creating a new department of social services in
Yeah.
Massachusetts.
Yeah.
And the head of that team asked me to do a body of research. It was called Promising Practices
Okay.
in in public policy
Yeah. Was
in
it, do you mind me
organizations.
asking, what kind of an organization was it? A nonprofit? Was it a research institute?
The Department of Social Services is the department
Of
that runs
government?
all social services in Massachusetts.
Okay.
And and we were planning and creating a whole new one.
Okay, so
So
it's
I was on the
public.
planning
It was a
team.
public office. It wasn't a
Oh,
private
definitely. And I was
entity.
on
Uh-huh.
no, I was on the planning team. Anyway, so I studied these really cool different organizations that were doing very promising new things,
Hmm.
and it was fascinating to me. And it's from there that I applied and got accepted to a doctoral program in Boston College in sociology,
Hmm.
studying workplace democracy.
Hmm. Interesting. Interesting. It's from the outside, when you hear that, it may sound to be theoretical because those positions at a doctoral level usually are. And but obviously you have a doctoral thesis that you have to defend, right? What did you do?
Oh, my study. I got very much interested in what is now called integral theory.
Hmm.
But the guy that I most loved and became my mentor and studied with was a guy by the name of Bill Torbert,
Hmm.
and he was taking adult development theory
Hmm.
and applying it to all social aspects of the world. So the idea is that you can look at organizations through different stages of development, look at individuals, you can look at teams through different stages of development,
Hmm.
you can look at society through different stages of development, and that is basically the basis of integral theory. And I did my doctoral thesis on my dissertation on the relationship between consciousness and leadership.
Oh, here we are. Here
Now
we
and here
are.
we are.
Now
That's
I
right.
have you. I have you
Yeah,
where I want you, Keith.
I know.
I had another guest I guess it was about 6 months ago, who also had a PhD in consciousness. And, it was endless. The talk was endless. You could go on and on and on and on. Now,
Yeah.
let's talk about that. Can we talk
Yeah.
about that?
Of course. Of course.
Give me the title again of your dissertation.
Well, I don't remember the exact title, but basically is the relationship between consciousness, and consciousness is defined as self-awareness,
Okay.
or is
Okay.
defined as higher and higher stages of adult development.
All right. Now there's
So
a consciousness is so controversial. Everyone sees it
it
from
is so, and it has so many different meanings.
and it
But
has so many
it
different
would
meanings.
be the higher stages of adult development. So the higher you go,
Hmm.
the more conscious you are.
Hmm.
The more conscious you are, the more effective you are as a leader. That was the hypothesis.
Well, okay, that is and remains a hypothesis, because it's not necessarily true that the higher you go, the more aware you are, the more self-aware. We could name and point out so many different examples of unaware individuals that have reached a very high level of.
Right. Right. What I mean is the higher you go in terms of your consciousness, the
Okay.
more effective
Okay.
you are.
All right. There you go.
But it's not the higher you go up the organizational ladder. No, it's
Okay.
not, there's no correlation there. But
No, none at all.
people people who are embodying a more elevated state of being in
Hmm.
terms of their consciousness and
Yes.
self-awareness are more likely to make healthy, wise choices
Yeah.
and be a better leader. That was the
Mm-hmm.
hypothesis, and that's now
Mm-hmm.
a theory. It was
I
proven
was
to be.
laughing because for many years I worked as an interpreter for the U.S. State Department, and then at the same time I was working for the Ministry of the Interior in Italy in the same capacity, and so you get to see high level people, and it's of course there's the client privilege here. I can't talk about what you talk
Mhm.
about or what people talk, but I was always so amazed at the way things were taken for granted from people at a very high level in terms of in sociological terms, how people in a social setting have to act with each other, or the trends that take place or in political circles. It's very, very. It was mind-boggling to me to be in these circles at very, very high level, and the most basic courtesy that you would extend to anyone often were not even brought into the mix at all. Now, we're at the dissertation. Okay, we're at the dissertation, and then from there, did you continue on with research in some way?
Uh, Not a whole lot. I did for about 5 years. I was the research assistant to Bill Torbert, and so we were doing some of the early finding early empirical evidence
Yeah.
for integral theory, even though that's
Hmm.
not what we called it at the time, but showing that you can look at the world through different stages of development, and we
Hmm.
were proving that through our research. But I'm not an academic in my
Okay.
heart. I'm a
In my
I'm a
heart.
practitioner,
Yeah.
and so I was interested in how do I help organizations become more humane, more
Okay.
conscious? How do I help leaders become more effective?
Hmm.
That's been my passion for
Okay.
40 years.
Now, um, going back to that brief presentation that I gave you, that you gave me to give you. So you mentioned, I live a life with no shame.
Yeah.
It's such a, when of all that little paragraph and I saw shame, I thought, what an odd choice of words. Can you uh, talk about that if you don't mind?
Yeah, so I I I, uh, I once read an article somewhere about 45 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
and the title of the article was "Guilt is not a feeling."
Uh huh.
And I thought it's
Interesting.
interesting because we often say, I feel guilty.
Yeah.
Guilt is an experience. Guilt is an assessment
Yeah.
of right or wrong, good or bad. And the feeling
I see.
associated
I
with
see.
guilt
Mm-hmm.
is shame.
Mm-hmm.
Shame is a feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Guilt is an experience. So with that, I just remembered that, and so I intentionally use the term shame because that feeling of shame is that feeling of I my the gut wrenching, the shying away, the constricting of oneself, the wanting to hide. Please don't
Yes.
see me is
And the
that
cause
feeling.
is because of something that occurred or that you déclenché, that you set off
Yeah,
in a way. It
yeah,
was,
yeah,
your fault, so to speak.
exactly. So
Uh-huh.
I would never feel shame of anything that happened to me that,
Yeah.
you know, uh, uh, but in life,
Mm-hmm.
I believe that I guide my own life. I'm the master captain of my own ship,
Mm-hmm.
and whatever happens to me is partly as a result of what I do or choose to do or
Yeah.
choose not to do.
Let me
So I
interrupt you
hold
just a
that point of
second.
view.
Mm-hmm. Because you
Hmm?
said in the beginning, early on when we started our talk, you said not from, we were talking about something that I don't remember now, but you said not from a spiritual perspective. You were talking about your family or a religious perspective. Does what you talk about now, what you are talking about in your life, no shame, is there a spiritual component? Why do I ask? Because you mention in one of the topics that you would like to share is why you've been on an inner journey for 50 years and you will be for the rest of your life. Is that, do you
Yeah.
understand? Have I got that out right?
Yeah. I
Okay.
think so. I read a book a long, long time ago
Mm-hmm.
called Lost Christianity, where the author Jacob Needleman made a distinction between Christianity and Christendom.
Uh-huh.
And Christendom is the institutionalization
Mm-hmm.
of the spirit of Christianity.
Right.
And the religions generally, in my mind, are made up of human beings who
Mm-hmm.
want to organize something, and they get farther and further away from the spirit.
Okay. Now,
That
ladies
is
and
the
gentlemen,
essence.
you've heard him. Twice now he's referred us to a book, and he's not answering directly. So I'm putting you to it
That's
now.
right. I
He
know,
tends to
I
do
know, but
that.
well, it gives me the entree to
Of course.
explain myself.
That's what I thought.
So I'm interested in, from that book, it was so inspiring, and I'm interested in how do I find the deepest spiritual truth from
Hmm.
within rather than from a religion, rather than from a book. So
Okay.
I've been on a path of self-awareness since I was 16,
Okay. So
and
we're good. Good. We're
and
let's
so
say.
how do I live a good life
Uh-huh.
without somebody telling me what that good
Okay.
life
So
is, but how do I find it,
yeah,
the knowing from within?
you've just equated self-awareness, your journey, and consciousness. We're seeing
Yes.
that now on the same level. Um, and you will be doing this for the rest of your life. You've decided that that is the only way that you could live, right?
I don't even know if it's a decision. It's just who I
How
am.
things happen. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, before after university with Bill Torberg, you were his assistant, and integral theory that I admit I will go look up. I'm a systemic girl, yeah, and I have never heard of integral theory. Um, After that, um, of course, there were clients. You have clients. You
Yeah.
want, you said, to help. And I imagine, I'm taking this for granted, but I will ask: is there a written form of help that you offer your clients? Do you write? Do you have published works?
Well, I've published 7 books in my
Hmm.
career, and I'm working on my 8th.
Okay.
Yeah, so all my books are in the realms of leadership and organizational
Okay.
life.
Okay.
And the most recent one is called The Art of Transformational Coaching, which is about how do you how do you coach people and help them transform? How do you help them become more conscious, more
Mm-hmm.
awake, and more and transform? So yeah, I'd love to write. The one that I'm working on right now is
Mm-hmm.
called The Sovereign Self,
Okay. Now this I
and
like.
and
This I
it
want to see.
relates back to the question, what do I mean by shame?
Yeah.
By shame I mean that I choose to live my life
Mm-hmm.
in accordance to my own dictates, my
Mm-hmm.
own principles. And if I live my life fully from my own principles, the principles that I choose, then I'm not going to feel shame. I'm going to
And
feel good about
I
what I do.
see, I see and hear what you're saying, but there is a thread that links it to a spiritual mode of existence. In my mind, I'm saying. You may
How
not
so?
say words,
It
but this
depends on
is,
what you mean by spirit, but
well,
how so?
because you are listening with your self awareness and your consciousness to what you believe is is you, what your soul is telling you, just to use different terms.
Yeah.
Because I can't pin you down spiritually. I know you're sort of squiggling out, and I'm just trying to give you back, you know. And I thought, let me see when I receive this
Okay.
pre-interview questionnaire. Am I going to get this guy to talk about the
So,
soul? I don't know.
so in my mind, there's a distinction between spirit and soul.
Okay, let's hear it.
Um, I would define spirit as that which we connects us all, our
Okay,
sense of divinity, our sense of connection to
okay.
all.
Mm-hmm.
Our soul would be that which is unique to me.
Unique to you. Mm-hmm.
That as I have a soul, uh, kind of like James Hillman's idea of soul's
Yes,
code,
he's
that
my man. Mm-hmm. Archetypal
imprinted on
psychology.
you and I is a soul destiny.
Mm-hmm.
And ours is to find that unique expression, whereas divinity is that which connects us all
Mm-hmm.
and it is not unique to any of
Yeah.
us. So for me, I lead a soul driven life and a spirit driven life, and they're both different.
Mm-hmm. One of the questions that I ask my guests in this pre-interview questionnaire is, you won a contest and the prize is to speak to anyone you would like. Who would that person be? And Keith wrote Dalai Lama. I would tell him about my life and ask him if he had any guidance for me as to what might be there for me to learn. So I'm thinking that you do see embodied in a an earthly figure some kind of importance that could bestow enlightenment on you, or some form of awakening. Is that right? Can I read that right?
No, no, I don't.
Okay.
I don't think I would be seeking awakening. I feel
Enlightenment.
I'm on a path of awakening
Mm-hmm.
all the
Already.
time, and I
Mm-hmm.
feel like I'm opening and opening more and more. No, the reason why I said that is that I'm so clear about what I want. I'm so clear about who I am.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so soul driven. I've had a clear sense of my focus and my purpose for over 40 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I've got such a strong will
Mm-hmm.
that I will myself to write these books and to do the work that I do. I feel like I'm so driven, so
Yeah.
will based,
Yeah.
that it's a time in my life now to open up to the mystery of life.
Mm-hmm.
And so I ask myself, who might
Best.
I
Mm-hmm.
who might give me guidance in the mystery? Who sees that which most people don't yet see?
Mm-hmm.
The Dalai Lama came to mind, and I
Okay.
respect the Dalai Lama's way of being, and I think he might offer me something that I might not ordinarily choose for myself.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
That's why I said.
All
But no,
right.
I'm not looking for some guru to give me
All right.
enlightenment.
Now, I will ask you to come back when that sovereign book sees the light. What's the title again? The draft title, what is it?
The draft title is The Sovereign Self.
The Sovereign Self. I would love to hear more about that. You promised to write me when that sees the light, and we can spend the entire interview talking about that.
I would love to.
All right. Thank you so much for coming. It was a pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening. Don't forget to follow Let's Talk Soul Podcast on Instagram. Let's Talk Soul Podcast is a production of Electrocast Media. Our executive producers are Mark Netter and Peter Rafelson. If you like our show and like what you hear, please subscribe and give us a rating wherever you enjoy podcasts. And remember, stay curious, stay inspired, and never stop exploring the depths of your soul.
I could tell she was a dame who normally knew what she wanted.
I'm looking for something interesting.
But when it came to podcasts, she was lost in a fog. That's where I come in. The name's Guide, Podcast Guide. I'm the community search engine for podcasts, and I knew I could help her navigate the murky waters of podcasting and find the shows that fit her style.
Can you keep it down? A girl's trying to listen to a podcast here.
Head to www.podcastguide.us and let's solve this mystery together.
Join us as we host Minding Business.
Let's face it, people of color are not at the top of the list when it comes to entrepreneurship in America. Here, we give you the tools and tips from successful business owners who look just like you.
And then we just come right out and ask, well, who made the potato salad?
Why does it matter who made the damn potato salad?
It don't really matter.
Exactly my point.
Because that's right. We discuss those sensitive topics based on our community that the media likes to either overlook or sweep under the rug. The Minding Business Podcast. We're looking out for your business.
Listen to us on Electrocast and everywhere you listen to podcasts.